Technical proficiency in longarm quilting starts at the very beginning, and that includes preparing your backing fabric for loading on the long arm. The reason I say that is that the weakest link is what's going to keep your quilt from being nice and square, and how you prepare your backing fabric is critical. First of all, you want to make sure you're using high quality fabric. Do not use sheets. I do not recommend that because they have a high thread count and the needle cannot easily penetrate through the threads of the fabric. You will have skip stitches and possibly broken needles, which will add to your frustration. If you use batiks, which are lovely, I recommend spraying them with a silicone spray to help the needle glide through them more easily. Just use a good high quality cotton fabric. When you prepare your fabric, I want you to first press it. Get the wrinkles out. It will make it much easier for loading, and it will produce a much nicer quilt back. Whenever possible, I want you to keep your selvages intact and use them to pin along the leader because they are woven more tightly and are very sturdy and firm, and they're also very straight, so it will help keep your quilt square. You also want to, before you put the quilt on the machine, square your edges. Make sure that the backing is square before it goes on the machine, and it will be much easier to control your finished product. You also, when you buy your fabric, want to make sure that when you buy it and cut it, that it is 8 inches longer and 8 inches wider than your quilt top. I'm just going to lay this quilt top on here for the purpose of demonstration, but the reason I ask you to have that extra 4 inches is so that you have room to pin onto the top and bottom leaders. I also want you to have the space at the side because as you're quilting, you need to make sure that the machine is not going to run into the clamps. It will damage the machine, it can tear your quilt, and you will have lots of problems. So you want at least 4 inches extra on the sides and again on the top and bottom. It also allows you a nice place when the batting is here and your quilt top is sitting back, your backing would be out here also, that you can take a piece of fabric that's similar to your quilt top, lay it on here and actually test your tension and make sure you have good top and bottom tension before you start quilting. And that is a very critical step for technical proficiency, is to have good tension. And with it being on the edge, it's very easy to undo the clamps and look at the bottom and see that your tension is good. It's very important to check. The other thing I want you to do prior to loading is, first of all, triple check your measurements and make sure you've got enough fabric, and then double check that you're loading it in the proper orientation. Every longarm quilter out there, without exception, has gotten to the end of the quilt and realized, oh my goodness, I loaded the quilt the opposite direction and I don't have enough fabric to finish my quilt. It is not a fun feeling. So make sure you double check the orientation and then go ahead and fold your quilt in half and find the vertical centers and put pins, and find the horizontal centers and put pins, so that you can line your quilt backing and batting and then the top up with the leaders. And all of this will help keep it square. The ones on the side let you know when you're getting to about the halfway point, so you can judge where you're at, and helps you with planning the alignment of your patterns. The very last thing I want you to consider before you put your quilt onto the machine is, if you have to seam your backing, is to use a wider seam, closer to 1 inch, for more stability because of all the stress that your backing takes on the long arm machine. I also want you to press the seam open to eliminate bulk. Now, if you choose to cut off the selvages, that's fine, or you can leave the selvages on. I've never had a problem with them, but some people feel better trimming them off, Or if you prefer, you can just make little slits with a pair of scissors along the selvage edge to allow a little bit of give there, since those edges are woven more tightly. If you follow all of these steps each and every time when you prepare backing, you will be pleased with the consistent results that you get and the squareness that your quilts will have.